Good evening. Welcome to the regular meeting of the Villa Park City Council. I hereby call the meeting to order. Steve, would you please call roll?
Present.
Here.
Present. Thank you very much. I was going to start with an invocation and say a little bit about two things. This one is not going to be as well prepared as some of the others, although I've been thinking about this in a lot in my head, so this will be a little bit more off the cuff. I noticed something in the last year or so, and it really came home just in the last several weeks as I'm contemplating not being on city council anymore, about the city council members that we have, which is that we have city council members who have been elected who are here for 4 years, giving their time, and in some cases elected, and then they have 4 years until they'll meet up with the constituents again or to get elected in again. But there's this gap of accountability where it really is on each person to connect with the voters, to talk to the residents of Villa Park, and to represent what the city embodies. And that's something that is a responsibility we've all taken on that we don't necessarily have to do anything about. Just to put it frankly, we could, once we're elected, we could just show up and not do anything. But all 5 of the people on this council, I should say, all 4 of my companions up here have put in a lot of time to our city, to connecting with residents, to talking to people about situations, about things that are coming up. And more than anything else, that's our job as city council members, is to keep an eye on our community, to listen to what staff brings up, to talk about what's happened, and then to vote to come up with those decisions that kind of drive us forward. And that reaching out to our constituents, reaching out to the people in the community is the most vital thing we do. And in some ways, I just want to applaud or commend the other members of City Council for what they've done to reach out into our community. I know I've done it myself too, which I think is part of the job, but that's not really where I was going with that. I just think it's such a big responsibility for all of us that I just wanted to say thank you, and that I appreciated everything that all of you have done. And it kind of extends into the rest of everything else, which is that the role of our elected officials really is to be part of everybody's lives and to make those decisions. And that we just went into this election cycle, and we now have a new group of people coming in, and it's their responsibility, and we need to pass that on and if we can hold people accountable, do so. That was my invocation. Moving on to the Pledge of Allegiance. Sir, would you mind?
Sure. Everyone, please stand. Place your right hand over your heart and face the flag. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated.
Thank you. Villa Park City Council and staff welcome you to this meeting, and we encourage your participation if you wish to address the City Council. Please complete and submit a speaker card, which is in the back. Speakers will be called individually during the public comment section of the item they wish to speak on. Speakers will be limited to a time period of 5 minutes. Speakers were also able to submit comments in advance by 3 p.m. Those comments will be read aloud in public comment section of the item. Moving on to presentations, I'd like to start off by calling forward Ed Carter from the Community Services Foundation. Sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members. Before I get started on my presentation, I just like to say as a citizen, I really appreciate each and every one of you for the commitment that you've made. I know myself, I just could not imagine doing the job that you guys commit to. And I love you for doing it and respect you for doing it very, very much. And I'm sure a lot of our fellow citizens feel the same way. So thank you for that. Anyhow, now I'm here to misbehave. I get to do this once a year, and it's concerning our upcoming Villa Park Boat Parade. So, members of the Villa Park City Council and community, Captain Claus wants everyone to know that the yachts are coming to town on Sunday, December 11th. Sponsored by the Villa Park Community Services Foundation, the 24th Annual Dry Boat Parade will launch in Villa Park's Asphalt Harbor at 5 p.m. from Taft Avenue in front of Villa Park High and tour parts of our city. Everyone is invited to enter their decorated craft in the parade. Guidelines, registration forms, and parade routes are available at City Hall as well as on the Foundation website. No yacht? Come cheer on the colorful entourage as it makes its way around our town. It is tradition that this wacky parade originated by Commodore Chuck Beasley in 1982, that's yes, 40 years ago, would have grand marshals that were known for their dedication and volunteerism in our city. Chuck is no longer with us, but the bees are still buzzing about who has been selected from the hidden jewel to have to lead lots of decorated yachts this year. Yes, the Foundation Parade Committee, using special data encryption algorithms and the latest artificial intelligence software, we scouted around town for the right candidate to lead our 2022 parade. Yes, true leaders, perhaps the Grand Marshal who has had recent experience in our town with both the Rotary Club and civic leadership. Santa chimed in on how he loved the waist accessory so much and hoped for someone who would also have their black belt. Or a family whose son and daughter had choir experience and who'd be willing to sing Jingle Bells, all to enjoy. Should it be a doctor, a Villa Park mock trial lawyer, or an Indian princess chief? The foundation team was sure Commodore Beasley would agree with that all three would be a perfect match for this year. And as luck would have it, they are all in the same family. If you haven't already figured it out, the Chad Zimmerman family has been chosen as the 2022 Dryland Boat Parade Grand Marshal. Congratulations, Margaret, Chad, Will, and Alyssa.
Wow.
And Chad, would you care to share about a phone call on Sunday evening?
So I was thinking, gosh, I know I'm all red. Wow,
Me
that is
too.
amazing. Yeah, so I called because I really wanted to make sure that I could nominate whoever was selected as the Grand Marshal as our distinguished citizen. And Ed's like, well, I can't tell you who that is. And I said, well, I've set aside, I'm not sure if I'm going to pick that distinguished citizen because I want to pass that on. But Ed would not tell me who that was so that I couldn't invite that person in here. But that's me. Wow. Well, I am truly honored. Thank you.
Well, I'm glad it didn't knuckle under the pressure from the mayor. So anyhow, congratulations, and we'll see you on the evening of the boat parade.
Okay. Thank you. Wow.
Can they take a picture so we can put it?
Could I take a picture, please? Sure.
Wait, I'm photobombing it. That's awesome. Congratulations, Chad.
Okay. We, on the agenda, have a couple of presentations that we are going to skip. Wow, I'm just going to take a second. Hang on. Wow. That's awesome. That is a great honor. I just, wow. Okay. I don't have anything to say necessarily. I just am, wow. Yeah. So let's move on to Orange County Sheriff's Department and have you give your presentation. Thank you, sir.
Oh, good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council. Thank you for having me here. This will be the October report from the Orange County Sheriff's Department. Before I get into the calls for service, I just want to talk about just a little community awareness. So going into the holiday seasons, as we mentioned, we have our boat parade all lined up. So we just want to remind folks to just take precautions to avoid becoming a victim of a residential burglary, or I'll even add a thing that we all know is really common is mail package theft. We want to use some of these same techniques to avoid that. So we want to make sure we're trimming our trees and shrubbery around our residents, provide a clear line of sight between your home and your neighbor's home. Plant some hostile vegetation around fences and under windows to discourage access. Keep your side gates locked when not in use to prevent easy access from your yard. I would also add, if you have motion sensor lights, camera systems, especially for the package delivery. And then if you have a patio or a walkway, sometimes it's good if you can strategically put a planter box or some type of maybe patio furniture or something that if you are getting a package delivered, the delivery person can at least put it behind this item or under it so it's not quite so visible from any passersby. So that's a little tip going into the holidays. For October, we handled a total of 431 calls for service, some noteworthy incidents. Last month, we had 2 petty thefts reported, one on Lincoln Circle and one on Wolf Drive. We had 6 reports of burglary. A couple of them, 2 from vehicles and 3 from either a residence or a shed in the backyard. Again, keeping our gates locked, shed locked in this case might have helped out in that ticket or incident. We had another vandalism, an egging in toilet paper, so it seems like our high school kids are staying active. We did respond to a domestic assault incident on Portsmouth. We had 2 assault and battery reports. One was between 2 school students that our school resource officer handled. It was a pretty minor incident. And then we had a kind of a road rage type assault and battery incident on Taft Avenue between a couple of drivers. Again, a minor assault, but still a noteworthy incident. And then we had 2 narcotics violations, one at Santiago and Wanda, one at Collins and Wanda. These were stops made by the deputies of subjects passing through Villa Park. For traffic-related incidents, we did respond to 5 traffic collisions. 4 of them were non-injury traffic collisions. Fortunately, we had 1 minor injury traffic collision. And we did have 1 drunk driving arrest. Again, reference that, going into the holidays, we want to encourage people to get a designated driver, use ride share. We definitely see an increase in those types of incidents this time of year. And for traffic citations, for our traffic enforcement, we issued 16 parking citations. The patrol deputy issued 26 traffic citation, and the motor sergeant issued 23 citations for the month. And that is all the information I have at the moment. I'm open to any questions.
You mentioned toilet papering and egging. That's not usually something we hear about. I know that's very often not reported.
Yeah, usually not reported, but in this case, they wanted to report.
Okay. I am aware of an incident in our community that involved toilet papering and an egging, as well as some other behavior by some younger boys. I'm wondering if that's related, but I guess I wanted to make a comment more than anything else, which is that those things don't always stay hidden, that those things often, when our kids do things out in the community, they are broadcast to other families and other people are aware of what's going on, and that what our kids do can reflect on us as parents. And if there's particularly bad behavior, it sometimes speaks to what the parents are teaching or saying at home. So I just want to highlight and encourage everybody to be respectful of each other and to treat our neighbors kindly.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if they're related or not to answer your question, so.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next up is Orange County Fire Authority. Sir.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council. Thank you for having me. Since our last meeting on October 25th, we had 63 units that were dispatched to 19 incidents over the course of the last 3 weeks since that meeting. One structure fire, and then 2 of the traffic collisions that were just mentioned beforehand, one being an auto versus pedestrian. That was the extent of the calls, the majority of those 19 responses being calls for medical aid service that Engine 23 typically will handle. When you hear the number, the 63 units, that's typically if Engine 23 is on another incident, or if we need multiple units responding for the same incident, such as in a structure fire, where we have 7 to 8 units responding on the initial dispatch. The safety message for the month from OCFA is safety while cooking. Thanksgiving, more than any other day of the year, including Christmas and Christmas Eve, we have more cooking fires on that day than any other day throughout the year. So just a few things you can find at our website at ocfa.org. Certainly stay in the kitchen while you're frying, grilling, or broiling your food. Please don't use the propane deep fryers indoors or in your garage. That tends to get us out there more times than not when those are used indoors. So they need proper ventilation, and fortunately we have the weather here that allows us to be outside to deep fry our turkeys while we're doing that. So please, as a reminder, test your smoke alarms. Never disable those while cooking. And then if you do have a grease fire, remember just to cover it on the stove. Don't try to move it to the sink. Any moving causes burns and whatnot and can spread the fire, and certainly no water on grease fires. Also wanted to just bring to your attention, today's the anniversary, November 15th is the anniversary of the freeway fire, one of the most destructive fires we've had in the county history. I mention it because we're coming into a wind event that's supposed to start this evening and last through early Thursday morning. The OCFA has upstaffed resources beginning this morning, and they'll increase those resources that are upstaffed through the end of the wind event that'll probably subside around 8 o'clock in the morning on Thursday. So we've got a strike team that'll be on standby for the whole duration. We're staffing our dozers and hand crews for 24 hours, adding additional rescuers to our helicopters, and having a second helicopter at the ready as well, should we get any vegetation fire responses. If anybody in the community has any questions on how they can prepare, ocfa.org/RSG is the site to go to. And RSG means for ready, set, go. So it's to be prepared in the event of a vegetation fire. That's the end of my report. I'm ready for any questions if you have any.
Chief. Thank you. Questions? No. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Moving on to our next presentation, or our next presentation would be Villa Park Library. Hello.
Good evening. Thank you for inviting me. Wanted to start out with a few library updates. With the holidays coming, we have board games over at the library. So if you're looking for something fun to do with your family, come on over and check out one of those. And that's always fun to do. Also, our zip books are back. We had these earlier this year for material not in our system. It's a quicker way for us to get materials to you. We received a grant through the state library, and within a few days, books that we don't have will be delivered right to your home, and you get to borrow those for the 3 weeks, and then you just return them to our branch when you're done with those. So please call us or check out our website for that. We have some new programs coming up. On Thursday, December 8th at 4 o'clock, we have a program for families called Smitten with Books. And it's our winter holiday program. And we'll have stories, activities, and a craft. And everybody is welcome to that. And it's Thursday, December 8th at 4 p.m. And then we also have, for adults, on Saturday, December 10th at 2 p.m., we're hosting an author, Michelle Hunovan, who wrote a fiction book called Search. She is a James Beard award-winning author, and we're delighted to have her come. And again, that's Saturday, December 10th at 2 p.m. And I wanted to have one final thing. We have a new database available for patrons on our website, ocpl.org. It's called Access Video on Demand, and there are 3 components to it. The one I'm most excited about is video content, streaming content for children. It has Sesame Street, Reading Rainbow, a ton of educational content. It's perfect for children and families. And there is another component of documentaries for adults, and then another one of feature movie content. So I hope our patrons might enjoy that. If you have questions about that, just give us a call at the library. And we have our regular programs continuing, story time and baby and toddler playtime and book club. And we look forward to serving the Villa Park community. And give us a call or chat with us or email us. We're happy to help.
Thank you. There's always so many great things you guys are doing, and I love when you come talk to us. What's the best way for people to find out? I guess just coming into the library and talking to you is probably one way. Calling, as you mentioned. The website also has a calendar that you can go look at.
Yes.
So that's ocpl.org.
Yes, and once you're on the website, click on libraries and choose Villa Park, and we update our calendar all the time. All of the events are listed there.
I
Excellent.
would also add that we publish on the feeder each week. We send out, the library is very great about sending us notices. So if you'll see that, there's a lot of stuff on the feeder, but if you look down there, you scroll down, you're going to see all the events. They make a really good effort to communicate, and we try and communicate that out. So you can check the feeder, you can call the library themselves, or on the websites like was suggested. So
Perfect. Thank you. Any
Thank you.
questions? Thanks so much. Okay, moving on to council member meeting attendance reports. We'll start off with Orange County Mosquito and Vector Control.
So we meet this Thursday for budget and finance, and then also the general meeting. So I have nothing to report since we're a week early.
Okay. Orange County Sanitation District, we actually did have a special meeting today, which was the OC State of Sanitation. And the first part of it was held virtually. There's a great link if anybody's interested in our sanitation and just getting a really good overview for about 20 minutes. The general manager, Jim Herberg, who is actually retiring as of this year. Unfortunately, we're sad to see him go. He's done a fantastic job there. He gives about a 20-minute talk that I can pass along the link for if anybody wants to find out. It's a really great introduction to OC San. And then so that's like from the 10-minute mark to the 30-minute mark of the meeting, and then about the rest of the 40 minutes is actually a virtual guided tour of the entire plant of here's what we do in this area, this is what the groundwater replenishment system does, and this is what the reclaimers do, and here's how we cap the odors, and all of the walkthrough of everything that's done in OC San is on this State of the San. So I found it fascinating, again, which, maybe that's just me, but if anybody else is interested, it's a really good overview and great way to learn about OC San as an introduction, and then they'll teach you more. So that's my report for OC San. OC Fire Authority?
Thank you. That is my meeting, and we have a meeting this Thursday, but we had a meeting prior to that one on October 27th. The Board of Directors regular meeting and concurrent joint special meetings of the Board of Directors, Executive Committee, Budget and Finance Committee, and Human Resources Committee met. It was a relatively light agenda, generally speaking. There was one very large financial matter that was dealt with, which was the continuing actions to purchase 2 Sikorsky S-70 Firehawk helicopters. That contract seems to be moving forward in a expeditious direction to the tune of roughly $62 million in taxpayers' funds to purchase new firefighting equipment. Additionally, there was another agenda item where teleconferencing was discussed. Unlike the Villa Park City Council, there are still some boards within Orange County that do use the governor's proclamation to Zoom in as opposed to meet in person, and there's a bit of contention amongst board members on that. The remainder of the, or I should say the balance of the agenda was dealt in closed session. Of course, can't really talk about that publicly. Look forward to this meeting, hopefully Thursday. Hopefully we have a quorum and continue discussions dealing with contractual matters. I know that Local 3631 and Orange County Employees Association is looking forward to get some resolution, as we all are. Thank you.
Thank you. Orange County Library Advisory Board,
No meeting, although they did set the schedule for next year's meetings. The first one will be in January.
perfect. And then Orange County Unified School District's City Schools Committee did not meet as well. Law Enforcement Advisory,
No meeting.
and then Villa Park Community Services Foundation.
So they always meet the day after a council meeting. So they met on October 26th, and this is a really busy time, as you heard about from Ed Carter. The boat parade is December 11th, and all the information for the boat parade is on the website of Villa Park Community Services Foundation, and also found, I think, on our website as well. Prior to that, on December 3rd, we have the Santa Tour, which is wonderful by our partners, OCFA and Orange County Sheriff Department. All that's in the morning, and the route and the Santa stops are also on the website. And then later on that evening, the 3rd, believe it or not, Winter Wonderland, where we convert the area outside into a snowy wonderland with about 20 tons of snow and ice skating rink. And that's from 4 to 8. That is sponsored by both the city and the foundation this year. And I believe there will be some of the PFSOs or organizations from several of the different schools that will be out there. I'm not quite sure what they're using as their fundraiser. It could be a cookie decorating, it could be a hot chocolate, I'm not sure. Forrest Case from the foundation is organizing that portion, but I do know that there's been several schools that have committed to that. And last year it worked really well where we tiered the time slots for the snow. So we're doing that again. So the littles, 3 or 4 years and younger, will be the first hour, followed by a tiered, which again will be on the website as well. And if you're a family that has multiple ages, you can go at whatever time slot you would like. The Hanukkah this year is December 18th through the 26th. The first night of Hanukkah is typically celebrated with the menorah and fried foods, latkes. And so this will be the second year that Rabbi Shui will be coming to do the menorah lighting, and that is going to take place outside City Hall here on Wednesday, December 21st. And that's it as of now. It's a lot.
Excellent. All good stuff. Very cool. Then next up, Housing Legislative Committee, not here. So then Bridges at Kramer Place
No meeting.
and Senior Citizens Advisory.
So Senior Citizens Advisory, we did meet on November 4th, and with that, if you remember, I'm on 2 committees there. One is the General Senior Citizens Advisory Committee, and the other one is Wellbeing Reimagined. Wellbeing Reimagined meets tomorrow, but the general meeting was November 4th, and we met down in Laguna Niguel in person for the first time in 2 years, which was really nice. And that discussed about the caregivers. So we always talk about, resources for individuals that need long-term care or Alzheimer's or any kind of dementia patient. However, one of the things is that caregiver needs care as well. So there is actually a lot of resources for the caregiver. And Jack Light is the Executive Director of Caregiver Resource Center of Orange County, and Patty Mouton, who is the Vice President of Outreach and Advocacy for Alzheimer's Orange County. And the Caregiver Resource OC is based out of St. Jude in Fullerton. And it's support groups for the caregivers, it's education, even financial assistance or advisors to help the caregiver through the process of having to care for somebody. So we can put the information up on the website for anyone that's interested if you are a caregiver and do want to have the resource to be able to get that help, whether it's social, emotional, or mental assistance for caring for your loved one, that long-term care. And that's it.
Excellent. So, moving on, we'll go to public comments. At this time, we will review any comments from members of the public to address any off-agenda items within the subject matter jurisdiction of the council, provided that no action may be taken on off-agenda items unless authorized by law. We'll also be reviewing public comments on each agenda item. Steve, is there anyone that is present or wrote in from the public that would like to comment at this time?
No blue slips have been submitted.
Okay. Anybody want to say something? Okay. We'll now move into our agendized public hearings. First hearing is to review and waive reading in full of all ordinances and resolutions on the agenda. I'll now open the hearing. Staff, please give staff report.
Thank you, Mayor. Item number 1 is the monthly item that we have on the agenda, which allows us to move forward in an expeditious manner and waive the reading, as it says, of all the ordinances, resolutions, and meeting minutes into the agenda. With that, we recommend approval.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Is there anyone here to speak on this? Council members, do you have any questions? No. Is there any discussion on this item?
So moved.
Second.
We have a move and a second. I'll close public hearing. If we could record our votes.
Passes by a 4-0.
Okay, thanks, Steve. Our next hearing is to approve the second reading of ordinance number 2022-628, the adoption of the 2022 Building Standards Code. I'll now open the hearing. Steve, could you please give the staff report?
Thank you. Item number 2 is a public hearing to adopt the 2022 Building Standards Code and effective January 1st of 2023. They go into effect, the California building codes. We are required to adopt those on a local level. You'll recall that we had the first hearing at our last meeting in October 25th, I believe it was. And now this is the second reading. These are consistent with the state building code standards, and they incorporate any adjustments or recommendations that the OCFA has asked us to include. So there has been no changes since the October 25th meeting as published. So those become effective 30 days after adoption this evening, if the council should so approve.
Okay, thank you. Council members, do you have any questions of staff? No? Is there anybody here to speak at this?
We have not received any blue slips.
Okay, anybody want to say anything about this? It's open, closing. Council members, any discussion regarding this item?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Could we please vote?
That passes by a 5-0 vote.
Thanks, Steve. Our next hearing is resolution number 2022-3561, approving the second amendment to the agreement for solid waste handling services regarding state mandate SB 1383 and consideration of CEQA exemption determining pursuant to CEQA guidelines, section 15061B3. I'll now open the hearing. Staff, please give the staff report.
Thank you. As indicated in the staff report, this is a rather lengthy item. In September of 2016, Governor Brown at the time signed 1383, which basically achieved a 75% reduction in statewide disposal of organic waste from the 2014 level by 2025. To achieve the goal, there were a number of items required, and that would be effective. Cities were required to implement by January 1st of 2022. The city of Villa Park has already incorporated new ordinances you adopted on November 16th, 2021. We are providing new organic recycling services to all residential multifamily properties, and so we did that. We developed an edible food recovery program. We began contracting with Abound Food Care as of April 1st of 2022. We are required to purchase organic sustainable materials. We also required to amend existing franchise hauler agreement to comply with SB 1383. And then we are required to establish enforcement, compliance, and reporting programs. In doing that, the city contracts with Republic Services for waste hauling. And in doing so, the onus on the city staff itself does not have the ability to go around and collect all these things. So it's incumbent upon us to work with and negotiate that services be provided through to comply with Republic Services. So over the last year, we've been negotiating with Republic. We've hired an outside consultant to help us review the numbers. The bottom line is that there is a cost associated. This is a state mandate that's required. So the city has basically no option to not implement. Should we, and real clear up front, if we don't implement, we can be fined a significant amount, and the state has indicated they're taking a very proactive approach in that regard. So it is incumbent upon us to develop the thing. The costs, we have spent a considerable amount of time and a considerable amount of effort going back and forth with Republic. So in essence, I want to say it's about a monthly charge that's here. It's going to be just over $5 and some change. I don't know the exact amount. That will be the monthly service that will be. Secondarily, as part of the waste hauler agreement, Republic is entitled to a CPI index. So there's $1.47 or so that will be added. So in essence, the total cost of the SB 1383 is $5.54 per month and $1.47 for a CPI, for a total of dollars of $7.01, if my math is correct. And that is something, again, I would like to point out that while we don't want to do it, and I certainly wouldn't want to increase the fees, this is something that I think is a Sacramento-based decision, and we ought to be redirecting concerns to Sacramento if people are concerned about the cost, because this is a reality and it is a requirement that we have to implement it. Takeaways from this is, unlike some cities, we're not adding an extra bin. People can use their organic waste into their brown waste containers, so there'll still be just the 3 containers, but they will expect, like I say, a $7.01 monthly. There's also an increase to commercial, but that depends on the level of service that the commercials are getting. We have, it's a pretty extensive contamination compliance monitoring, so this is not something that we can just say we're doing and not do it. We have a responsibility. There are monthly reports on tonnage, et cetera, that are required. So even the cost of doing that has been addressed in detail. So we went through an extensive detail. We contracted with Mike Baye, I guess I did pronounce it correctly, right? All right. Mike is here. He can answer any specific technical questions. But again, I want to say this is not something we willingly entered into, and we negotiated extensively with Republic to bring the cost down. And I believe Mike can attest, we brought it down pretty significantly. So we're at a comparable level, at least, or a comparable or lower level than most other city increases. But unfortunately, it is something that's a mandate that Sacramento forced on us, and we are now dealing with it. And in doing so, we have that reality. So I'm prepared to answer. There's a lot of questions. There's a lot of details. There's a rate schedule that's attached. But basically, what you're doing tonight is you would be approve the second reading and adoption. No, I'm sorry. You're approving the authorizing us to implement the agreement with Republic that will enforce this. And then you're authorizing us to move forward on the implementation. We are being, we have put off Cal Recycle, which is the state agency. We've kept telling them we're negotiating, but we are probably almost a year behind the initial implementation date. So we've held off as long as we can, but we are verging on the point of being in non-compliance. So we are moving forward, and it's extensive detail that we've spent trying to get it where we can, and we're prepared to answer any questions. So there is some initial startup costs, but we were also able to secure some local assistance grant to help us do it. So about $20,000, we defrayed some of our costs, our implementation on that, and we're using to pay for instance, our consultant with that money. So again, Mike and I are both available to answer any questions, but tonight we're asking for your approval and recommend that we take action this evening.
Okay, thank you. Mike, you want to step up? I'm going to ask you a first question, which I think we can see if there's others after that, but I know our residents want to know, what are they getting for the $7 increase?
Well, what's happening is the state has written regulations that basically dictate at what type of facilities and what type of manner all organic waste can be processed.
Is your mic on? I'm sorry, I just want to make sure, is the light on?
It should be dark light or light.
There's a
It's on.
green light, yeah.
Okay.
I can speak louder, trust me. So basically, you have more expensive facilities. And for example, we were talking about being able to put the food waste in with the green waste. The only other option would be a separate truck, a separate collection program, which is not, that would be $10 a month, so that was more expensive.
So-
But the minute you put the food in with the green waste, it has to go to a specialized facility that's significantly more expensive, because composting facilities that deal with food waste have a bunch of water quality issues. They're very difficult to permit. The state is about 100 facilities short of their ultimate goal. So it's legislatively driven costs is 80% of that increase. The other 20 is actually legislatively driven, but it's monitoring. It's having people go out and look in bins to see and record if there's contamination, and through 2023, send out education material. After that, the regulations mandate that the city fine non-compliant individuals and businesses through a 6-month process, basically where you're notified, hey, you're contaminating, please stop it. A second warning, third time, the city has to enforce the law, or unfortunately, the state will fine the city for not enforcing the law. So it's quite challenging. And so all of these things are very difficult for cities to do. That's why you have a franchise agreement, but under the law, you have to have some type of instrument, and that's why your agreement has been amended to cede some of these responsibilities to the hauler, and that's what we spent the good part of a year arguing, is how much should it reasonably cost, and we're able to parry back some of the assumptions, but what was left plus CPI is the increase before you today.
So right now, if somebody put food in their green waste bin, it would be bad, but as soon as they've enhanced their procedures on what to do with that stuff, then it'll be composted differently, and that allows, that's what,
It will go to a different facility that is permitted to compost a mix of green waste and food waste. The minute you add food waste, you add costs. Again, on the commercial side, you can collect it separately, but again, it still has to go to a very expensive facility. I'm hoping that over the next 2 to 3 years, more facilities will open up, creating competition and bring the costs down. But at this point in time, there's kind of a shortfall.
And I would add, the county of Orange is talking about creating a facility. So should Integrated Waste Management develop that, or it changed the name, I think, but
Pretty far along with a pilot, and so they're trying to be able to handle the organic waste and the food waste, green waste mix, be able to do composting at the landfill sites. But again, you would think the left hand and the right hand would work together with the state, but permitting those facilities is part of the delay.
okay. So what are the odds that we'll see a decrease in the cost on this once competition swings in? Probably not very high.
Well, again, the city retained the ability to control where the material goes. We know what the cost basis is now of the rates that are in place. So as soon as there is a lower cost facility, the city could address that with the hauler.
so the agreement is open to that effect. And so we've allowed ourselves that kind of control.
Sorry, I'm monopolizing, please.
Hi, Mike. We met earlier. I have one question and kind of a concern that I want to know how you can address it. But first, my question, just for kicks and giggles, let's pretend so that we can understand and we can tell our residents what to expect. So let's say that I have some leftovers from a restaurant that's in a styrofoam package, right? So in order to make sure that I don't get fined, if I'm discarding of those leftovers, I must take the leftovers and take them out of the container, put them in that green waste, and then take the container and either put it in the recycle or the trash, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so again, for instance, like a bag of lettuce that went bad, you have to open the bag of lettuce, dump out the lettuce, and make sure the plastic container that is in a separate one, correct?
Yeah, the only variance would be paper that isn't coated, that's contaminated or mixed in with food can be
like a paper
considered
towel or
organic
something that
waste,
you
yeah.
use to wipe up like
But
spaghetti
again, a
sauce
lot
or
of
something.
the paper that food comes in is coated in wax or something like that, and that would not be acceptable.
Okay.
That would need to go in the trash.
Okay, great, thank you. And then now here's my concern. I sit on two of our boards that are dedicated to seniors, and we have a large senior population in Villa Park who live on a fixed income. And some of our seniors actually have bins that are the smaller bins, not a whole lot of them, but a few that have, I don't know what the size is, a 50-gallon, or what's the regular size?
95, 65, and then 35 are
Right,
the really
so
tiny
some of them
ones.
have the little ones still. They're these, residents that have lived here forever and are, by themselves and have the little ones because it's very hard to bring down to the curb. Are you saying that those individuals also have to pay that $7, or is there some way that there can be a tiered system or something we can do to protect some of our seniors that are on that very fixed income?
This issue came up before. There are less than 20 of those in the city.
Yeah.
But there are 20 of them. And we did talk about in our normal franchise agreement. So they're already getting discounted at that point. For the additional increment, Mike can answer that question.
Well, again, the size of container, the increase is based on your standard rate. So again, with a smaller container, it's a smaller rate. So I would have to break out the list, but it's basically the math. It's estimating 3 pounds on average is what the food waste increase will be once it's put in the right container. And again, some cities are using a 5 to 7 pound amount. Nobody's using anything less than 3. So again, that was one of the things that we pushed to try to reduce the cost. So again,
Yeah, it just, I have concerns with our seniors on those fixed incomes. And so the cost, since it's the same container and it's the same truck, it's just going to a different facility, right? So it's not tiered on how much, like maybe I have a family of 10 and I'm putting out a whole bunch of green waste, whereas my neighbor, who's a single
yeah, we
80-year-old
don't
woman,
have
isn't
any
gonna.
pay-as-you-throw capabilities. I know some countries in Europe have scales on the thing, and they're able to weigh and say, hey, you owe this much. It's a
Well, I hope
amalgamated cost.
as this progresses, that maybe we can come up with some finer outline or guidance for some of our seniors that do have these fixed incomes, maybe.
Certainly.
That's it.
Questions?
Yeah.
Sir?
The one thing that concerns me about this whole program is how do we educate our public? How do we, educate them on the do's, the don'ts, and make them aware of what's going on? So some type of education program, that's the one thing, getting it out, not just stuffers in the envelopes and things like that, because most of them don't pay attention to that. So we just need to be mindful of, because if we start enforcing this, what I don't want to see is people getting in trouble because the city and Republic didn't do a good job of educating them on and the state on what is required to do, because people will make mistakes. I mean, they will. They just will. That's human
And
nature.
for the purpose of enforcement, I think there was a 3-tiered thing where they're notified 3 times before they're, basically.
Well, I realize
trouble.
that, but
But as far as an education element, that is required as part of 1383.
Yeah,
So
and Republic is shouldering part of that in their franchising requirement. Also understand that the state is viewing what's left of 2022 and 2023 as a non-enforcement period, where basically it gives us a chance to educate. We have a full year of this program being introduced before there's any ability to fine. And again, part of what the extra costs are is the law requires each route in the city be audited for contamination. It's a random type situation. So not every cart is going to be overturned, but they do have to overturn a representative or upturn a representative sample to see if there is contamination. And if there is, that's when a notice would come out to say, hey, please correct this. And again, it's not a rapid, people are going out with tickets and fining when they find it.
So we are required to do an annual outreach plan as part of 1383. We are required to, so we're working with Republic to do that. They have a public education. That was part of the issue, is they added a public education person to help us deal with this. We are required to issue annual outreach pieces of information, you know, however that be booths at events, those kinds of things. So you're going to see more of that present. So there's a lot more outreach, and that's a combination of efforts on the part of the city staff, and it will be part of the effort. So you'll see it in our electronic emails, you'll see it in our discussions, and then we have Republic as well, who will be doing a lot of outreach as well. So unfortunately, it's like you say, it's an education process, and we have habits, and we're all gonna make those mistakes, and I agree with you. I'm gonna probably make mistakes myself, all of us will.
It's more about, I don't know, it's kind of like the
Right.
questions that Councilwoman Miles, you know, brought up about, do I take it out of a plastic bag? What, you know, those kinds of things.
Right.
Making sure that they don't get in trouble for doing the wrong thing, so.
So the rollout is, like we say, we have the better part over a year to get it fully rolled out, so we have some time. And but that whole implementation plan is something that's required and monitored candidly by the state. We have to submit our plan to the state. So we are working in consultation with other cities to see what kinds of outreach they're doing. And we're trying to consolidate our efforts and you know, work with, and Republic is also well aware of this. I mean, the onus is on them as well. So we're in this together. So we've got a lot of work to do. It's not easy. It is going to take additional staff on that, but we're not asking for additional city staff, but that's something that we're going to have as a requirement. You're absolutely correct. It's going to be an education process.
Thank you.
Did you say that other cities are paying the same, or is it?
Mike has done this work for several cities. I mean, every city is increasing their cost.
Right.
How they're doing it and how they're doing it depends on the nature of their franchise agreement. Each agreement is differently and built differently. Mike can address, but our costs are comparable to what other cities are increasing, as I understand it.
Yeah, and again, the one challenge that you have is with the larger lot sizes, you do have more green waste on average than other cities. And since the food is going in with that material and it's going to a more expensive facility to process, that's 80% of your increase is that amount of material that you have. So that's one area where you do have a bit of a challenge with the big lots and
The other thing is we don't have, a little different here. Most cities have a lot more commercial than we do, so they spread their costs into commercial. We don't have that luxury. So our costs are not distributed. It's directly on the residents. You know, the only town center is all we have, candidly. This does not, while they're subject to it, we do not get credit for the schools or any of that. So we are stuck with just the commercial town center and the residential. So the costs really are borne primarily, candidly, from the residents.
Yeah, and you do have to monitor and report on what the schools are doing, but you can't
We don't,
franchise them and get revenue.
yeah, we can't deal with that.
Well, you don't know me, but if you knew me, I like comparable data. I like to kind of know like where we fall, because I don't normally deal with trash business, but it's hard for me to wrap my head around just because we have more green waste and now we're putting food waste into that green waste, that we're going to be comparable to cities that have like 40,000 people when we have less than 8,000 people. That's kind of.
Well, it's divided by the amount of ratepayers as well. So there's certain costs for that truck to be on the street, for the driver, they're all unionized, for insurance and all of that. But then the bulk of it is how much material are they collecting and paying for a facility to take it and process it. So amongst your three containers, your organics container tends to be a bit higher than average as far as the amount of material, your overall per resident generation. So that's what I was referring to, is it's a little extra cost increase for processing that material in a more expensive way. But again, if you look at the North County and what their increases were, they're all comparably increasing to pay for not just the processing of this material at new facilities, but contamination monitoring, increased education, maintaining records. There's a new software program that the hauler is going to use to keep all your records in place, because CalRecycle can have at any time inspection to make sure you're monitoring everything you're supposed to monitor.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else from the public that wrote in or that would like to speak on this?
No, we have not received anything.
Council members, thanks so much for your comments. Council members, any other discussion on this item? I'll now close the public hearing.
We have to do this. If we don't, then we get fined, correct?
Yeah, so I don't want to underestimate the severity. We're talking potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars that
thank
we
you.
would be fined. They have the ability to fine us at the state level to their heart's content, if you will. How much is it?
10,000 per day is what he said.
10,000 per day, so 30 days would be, what, $300,000. So obviously, it's in our best interest to implement.
Is there a motion on the matter?
Recommend approval. Oops, sorry.
Sure.
Please.
My question is for Mike. My name is Jordan. My question is for Mike regarding the brown waste, the green waste. Each property has, like for me, I have 2 of them. I highly doubt weekly I'm gonna produce that much organic waste for 2 barrel. So how can we, maybe your company can try to figure out how can we maybe only take one of the the yard waste to the recycling dump, the other one actually go to yard waste. Maybe there's a possible saving.
Well,
I don't know how that works.
If you have, I can answer a little bit of it, and Mike can deal with it. If you have 2 bins that you aren't filling up, you can obviously not have 2 bins. You can go back to 1 bin, which would save you the money of the additional bin that you're being charged now. Secondarily, once anything is mixed with that green, it has to be taken to a separate plant and processed. Go ahead, Mike, why don't you?
There's really not a viable self-haul option like with the landfill material. You as a resident can go to the landfill and dump your material. There's not a place where you can take your food waste now that will accept it from the public, and also not the mix of food waste and green waste. Again, that's one of the things that the County of Orange is trying to develop at the landfill, which might be an option. But again, minimizing the number of containers and the size of containers is a way that residents and businesses can control costs. So of course, I would urge you to do that. That's it.
Okay, so I'm going to ask one on follow-up then, because it's a good question. Did we look at what it would be for us to have a separate food container?
Yeah, that would be
Yes,
$10,
30,
Yeah.
30% more.
$10 per versus $7 right now. So we've looked at options, and Mike did.
But then
Complete-
would it
it's
be
a
$10 for
completely
every resident, or would it be if you're only the residents that wanted to do it?
Well, everyone has to do it. That was one of the
Because it's a
code
separate route
changes
that would have to be, a truck would have to go for a separate route. So the cost is, you have another truck on the roads that has to pick up that thing, so the additional cost, the delta, is what, $3?
Yeah, so again, your ordinance you passed back in 2021 was required by the state, and it basically put all your residents and businesses under the requirement that they had to recycle their organic waste. They could no longer put it in the trash. So you couldn't have a voluntary, just these folks are going to participate. Everybody has to. So then again, an extra truck, an extra driver, all of that is much more expensive than adding the material to an existing route, even though it will extend the route incrementally because of the weight add and the legal limit that trucks can carry. It's still much cheaper than a new route.
Great.
Can I ask one more? Sorry, because it made me follow up. So that $7 increase, that's per container or per household?
$5.54 is per household per month.
Okay. So it
it's an
doesn't matter if you
overall
have
rate.
2 brown waste containers or 3 brown waste or 1, it's going to be the $5 plus the,
It's a 3-container standard service charge. There are extra
If people have extra, they get charged extra. If they have extra number of bins,
container
but they're just getting
charge.
charged for the bin. They're not
The extra
getting that
bin, right.
$5 fee on both bins. It's just the flat
right?
per household.
Right.
Right, okay.
For
That's what I
3
want to make
bins,
sure.
Yeah, it's spread
Right.
out amongst the 3 bins.
Right, thank you.
But they are paying for the extra bin.
Right, I understand that. I just want to make sure it wasn't per bin.
No.
So then it would be 14 or 10, but yeah.
And I think
you.
that was one of the things, we have had some residents ask about that, who don't want that extra bin because of the roads and the sometimes narrowness of some of our roads, and extra trucks driving through the city, et cetera. So that's been an issue that we have had several calls about that, not a lot, but a few. saying, are you guys implementing that? Because we've started education on some of this already with the adoption of the ordinances and things like that. So that's sort of an issue.
And when do we expect that the actual grace period will end, and when we start to, we have to be, very diligent?
2024.
Well, the regulation required full implementation by January of 2022. Most Orange County cities are not there. The state is saying that they're not going to enforce with fines or penalties until 2024. So we're in kind of a
Okay.
gray area until then.
Right, but
we have-
technically, the legislation
Right.
allows them to enforce earlier. It's just that they've indicated to us that they recognize the difficulties in negotiating this, and the number of
Sure.
facilities is not available, and gearing all this up. So we have a gray area or a grace period or whatever you want to call it until 2024.
So we as a city could really help, to Councilman Pitt's point, we could really help educate
Yeah,
and,
that's our job one over the next
thank
12
you.
months.
Thanks. Appreciate the extra questions. I think that was helpful in getting some clarity on that. So I'll close the public hearing again. Is there a motion on the matter?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Can we please vote? Steve, could you read the results?
Passes 5-0.
Thank you very much. Moving on to consent calendar, we'll now consider our consent calendar. All items are considered routine and usually enacted by one motion, approving the recommended action listed on the agenda. Any member of the city council, staff, or the public may request an item be removed from the consent calendar for discussion or separate action. Council members, are there any items 4 through 6 that you'd like to remove from the consent calendar? Anybody from the public that wants to remove any items 4 through 6? Seeing none, if we could have a motion on the remainder,
So moved.
I'll second it. Go ahead and vote. Steve, could you please read the results? Oh,
Passes by a 5-0 vote.
thank you, sir. We'll now move along to the, really?
City manager
Good.
report.
Yes. Really? Yes, yes.
Okay. So you know what? I apologize. Let me just go back for a second. Because did we, that was on the consent calendar?
Yes.
Oh, I thought that was after the consent calendar. If you guys would indulge me for just a second, I think there was an item from the consent calendar that I thought was on, was not. It's going to take me just a second. But I wanted to bring up the,
That one?
yes, item 6, and just kind of highlight this for just a second. I don't know, I'm sure we all read through this, and unfortunately, Rima Nashishimbi is not here tonight. She was the one that inspired item 6 to be brought before council. But the item is a resolution on the commitment to end child marriage. And this is something that was brought forward to Rotary at one point in a larger discussion about child trafficking. And we will have a discussion about that with Rima in the future. But in the meantime, this resolution is something that many other cities have adopted, and it goes about looking at the age of marriage and setting a limit on what that should be, because there is nothing in our state currently to limit the age of marriage for kids. And so I highly recommend that anybody that's interested in this topic to go research about it and look at what can be done at the state level, because while cities can enact a resolution on this matter, it really is kind of a whack-a-mole situation where one city says no, and so people just can do it in another city nearby. And it is more about having cities come to a consensus on this matter to spread awareness so that it does become something that's enacted at a state level. And again, I just recommend that. I see we have a dozen or so high schoolers in here that might be interested in learning more about what the legal age of marriage is and why you would want to limit that and what it means. So I just want to encourage you guys to go do some more research on that and to look into it. It's already been enacted. We already said yes, and that's fine. I just, so my apologies. I thought we were going to say something about it after that. I don't know why I thought it was number 7 or something on the agenda. Okay. Let's go back. Oh, man. To the city manager report. Sir.
Thank you. A couple things, just the monthly report is there. It's provided for your information, and it's published in the agenda. If you have any questions, I'm certainly prepared to answer. A couple things of note I wanted to mention, and I'm sure the mayor will mention himself. We have on next Monday a town hall from 6 to 8 on inflation, basically how to deal with inflation and what it means, et cetera, from 6 to 8. So questions will be answered. We have some considerable knowledge and expertise within the city that, within city residents that will help us answer that, and they'll be available. So it'll be in City Hall. We also intend to stream it and copy it, and so people can watch it at their leisure down the road. So I just wanted to bring that out. We published information on the feeder, but if anyone has questions that they'd like answered at that time, we encourage you to submit those questions in advance so people can answer that. And lastly, this is something that I get to do just as a privilege. If I could have both Mayor Zimmerman and this is our last regular business meeting of this council. The next meeting would just simply be a certification of the election, and then the new council members will take seat on December 6th. But if I could have Councilman Colacott and Mayor Zimmerman join us, the city has purchased some little gifts as remembrances, and thank you for your service. Councilman Colacott has been here 8 years and done a wonderful job in the city, and we want to thank him in a very small way. This is just small tokens of our appreciation. And Mayor Zimmerman, the same for you. You've been here 4 years. Obviously, you've both made a very significant impact to the city, and we're very appreciative. So as a sort of a thing, we'd like to hand this to you, and if you come down here, we can get your pictures because we think it's kind of important.
Okay.
Voting mechanism.
Sit in the audience and mess with it. That would be funny.
So if we could get both of you and we could get a picture and put that in the theater, that would be, if the rest of the council would come down, that would be really nice of you. If you could come down, that would be something.
That's beautiful.
Have you and you, sir. I want to thank you both. It's been a pleasure. Likewise. Congratulations. So with that, as I would like to remind people that on December 6th, we'll have basically the council, this current council will certify the election. For those of you who are antsy about the results, those are still pending. They can go on to ocvote.com. I believe you can see .gov. You can see the results on 5 o'clock each night. They update them. There are still several 100,000 or 150, 60,000 to count. So every night it's sort of a roller coaster about what and where. We'll find out probably in a few days, whatever, what the final results are. But the public, they're very public about what the votes are each thing. So again, we don't have the results, but on December 6th, they're required by law to have them done. So we will have the certification, and the new council members would be sworn in on that date. It will not be an action item, and we will have our first regular meeting with the new council on December 13th. Or the first two, yeah. Yes, December 13th. I have math in my head. So that would be at 6:30, regularly scheduled. Again, that's being scheduled a week early, so we don't have conflict with the holidays. So I just wanted to put people on alert, and I can available to answer any questions you have.
Steve, thank you so much. I very much appreciate this. It's been a pleasure working with staff and with the other council members. I want to say thank you too. Any other questions or?
Well, I was going to make a comment. Are you going to say anything about your Distinguished Budget Award that you got?
Oh, yeah.
For the 10th consecutive year, the Government Finance Officers Association of America, City of Villa Park was awarded a Distinguished Budget Presentation Award, and that's something that we're really proud of. And it was interesting, Lee, our new financial director, I asked if she was going to submit it this year, and she goes, she's not going to ruin the streak. So it's something with great pride, and it goes, what we do is we submit the budget, and it's reviewed by various finance officers elsewhere all over the country who review it and provide comments and details, and we have, again, received for the 10th consecutive year that award. So we're real proud of what staff do. Alyssa and Lead put in a majority of the work on that, but it's a combination of effort of decisions you guys make. We implement that and putting it into a budget that has things. So they can actually see the document itself on the website, and it's the first page. We always include the copy of the previous year's award. So thank you very much for reminding me. And again, it's a tribute to the hard work.
Take a bow.
10 years, fantastic.
10 years, that's very good.
Well done. Any other comments, questions for city manager? No? Going once? Okay. Moving on to mayor and council member matters. It's now time for us to hear individual council member information items. I'll start off with council member Colcott.
Thank you. As was mentioned earlier, this is my final council meeting after 8 years. I am the longest-serving councilman at this point, also the oldest councilman of the current council. I've been a resident of Villa Park since 1981, so this is my, I'm almost here. December 19th will be 42 years, I guess. Or, yeah, 41 years, I should say, in Villa Park. And it's been a wonderful experience both as a resident, and it's been a pleasure and an honor to serve you as your city councilman. I'd like to begin by congratulating the new members of the council, Nicole, Jordan, or Donna, whoever ends up winning the election in a few days. And Crystal, of course, it's wonderful to see you reelected. It's going to be a very challenging time in the next council session, over the next 2 years or 4 years for the council. The city is facing some serious issues that we will there's no way to avoid. One that's probably at the foremost of most of our minds is our housing element. This is a state mandate. As I raised a couple of questions about rumors I heard at the last council meeting. One rumor that was going around was that the housing element is not required. You don't have to do it. You can just ignore it. And our city attorney assured us very clearly that yes, we have to adopt a housing element. We have to address our RHNA allocation. Otherwise, fines, penalties, usurping of our local zoning authority and so forth, all kinds of bad things can happen to the city. It's not an option. Another issue or rumor that was going around is that, hey, we don't have to do any of these requirements except, we can just do it all with accessory dwelling units. And our city manager pointed out that that was our going-in position I think it was a year and a half ago when we first submitted to the Housing and Community Development Agency in Sacramento, and they roundly rejected our proposal to try to meet our housing element just with accessory dwelling units. Our allocation for affordable housing units is 296. We currently have have in our housing element, we're proposing 86, and even that is being viewed by the Housing and Community Development Agency as a very aggressive reliance on accessory dwelling units. And just to show that they're not just picking on Villa Park by not allowing us to meet it just with accessory dwelling units, the city of Yorba Linda also submitted a housing element that relied entirely on accessory dwelling units, and that was immediately rejected by the Housing Community Development as well. And now they're struggling to try to find a way to meet their arena allocation, which is much larger than ours. You know, they have a larger city, larger population, but still it's going to be a challenge for them. There's a third rumor that is going around, and that is that the Smith Basin, which is pretty much the cornerstone of our housing element, is just a deception or a diversion, that we really don't intend to do it. That it's just to try to kick the can down the road. It clearly is not, and anybody who thinks that it is that we're not serious about this and that it's not feasible really needs to sit down with our city manager, Steve Franks. This is a viable alternative, and it's something we have to make sure is successful. And why do we need to make sure it's successful? Well, if you were at the housing element workshop we had last May, we had one community in our city that was where we were proposing to do some rezoning of city property to try to meet the housing element. And we had, was it 100 people show up and a whole bunch of letters saying no. Imagine if we tried to put distribute the housing, the arena allocation throughout neighborhoods within our city. We'd have all those neighborhoods battling against each other, to try to keep their neighborhoods intact. The only way to keep our city from having internal warfare from neighborhood to neighborhood is to make sure that the Smith Basin alternative works out. There's no place else we can put 296 units. We have, my guess is perhaps 2 vacant lots in the city, and you can't put 296 units there, on couple of vacant lots. So the housing element is one of the real challenges that we're facing. Another that I've championed since I got on council 8 years ago is infrastructure management or maintenance, and particularly streets. This is going to be a continuing large challenge for our city. It's very expensive to maintain our streets, and we have a very small budget. I know I did some research a few years ago, and although we're a relatively affluent city, we're actually one of the poorest cities in terms of per capita revenue, particularly for infrastructure management or maintenance. So this is going to be a challenge for us, and we've got to figure out how can we do that and maintain our, all the other services provided by our city. With all this going on, just like all of us residents are facing inflation, the cities are facing inflation. It's going to cost more to maintain our streets. It's going to cost more to maintain our staffing and all the other expenses we have. It's going to be a real challenge for our council to deal with over the next 2 to 4 years. Another challenge that's coming up is our city manager. We've been blessed with a really good city manager for about 5, 6 years now, and but he's not going to be here forever, and quite possibly over the next 2 to 4 years, he's going to decide to really retire for reals, and we're going to have to find a replacement. It's going to be tough to find another Steve Franks, and that's going to be up to our city council to try to solve that equation. That's going to be a tough one. Finally, one of the things that the first thing I addressed in my very first city council meeting was crime. We established the Law Enforcement Advisory Committee, which brought in a number of our city residents who are law enforcement professionals to work with our sheriff department and the Neighborhood Watch program. And it has been very successful over the past several years in helping to keep our crime rate down, getting the residents and the city and the sheriff department talking to each other. We've actually solved some crime. One of our most serious crime sources was construction sites. Materials and equipment was routinely being stolen from construction sites, and actually it was our residents that went to the sheriff department and brought this to their awareness, and we worked together and solve that. But crime's going up again, and we've got to figure out, okay, with all the pressures going on around us statewide, how are we going to keep our crime rate low in this city with the limited resources we have? So anyway, our new city council is going to have quite a series of challenges. They're up to it, and I'm sure our staff is up to it. It's going to be it's going to take a lot of imagination and a lot of commitment to come up with the solutions to all these problems and keep Villa Park just as it is. Again, when I first ran for council in 2014, I knocked on every door in the city, and I talked to every resident that cared to open their door. And the question was, well, I always asked was, well, what could you do to improve Villa Park? And their answer, it was almost like we were the Stepford Wives. Everybody said had the same exact response. I like Villa Park just like it is. Keep Villa Park just like it is. That's going to continue to be our challenge as a city council. Anyway, good luck to you all. I'll continue to be a resident, and you know, I'm available as a resource if anybody's interested. But it's been quite an honor and a privilege to be on your city council. Anyway, thank you again.
Okay. I was going to go to the other side. Councilmember Pitts?
I want to bring up one thing, and that is I've noticed increased traffic on Nextdoor and Facebook regarding coyotes. And I've seen them, especially in my neighborhood, increase the numbers. I know, we've had issues in the past trying to figure out, how to minimize them, which we can't. But I'd like some awareness about making sure people keep their small animals indoors and things of that nature. Keep your eye out for them. But I've got probably 6 right behind my house that roam around at night and things like that. And it's a very dangerous situation. I tell you, it's very eerie too, to hear them, yipping at about 2 o'clock in the morning. So I just encourage everybody to be mindful of that, but anything that we can do from a county perspective to help, because it seems like it's increasing. There's more of them present than it has been before that I've noticed, at least in my community. And I've got friends that are sending me pictures, on their Ring cameras and stuff like that, showing several of them in their front yards and backyards. So just want to bring that to everybody's attention. Thank you.
And then Councilmember Miles.
Okay, I want to say it's been an honor to serve both with you, Councilman Colacott, and Mayor Zimmerman. I appreciate both of you and your perspectives that you each have offered, your wisdom, and the way you approach things. And thank you both for your time and your guidance and your kindness that you have shown me in the past. So that's on that note. I want to say November 11th was Veterans Day, and I was honored to be invited as a guest of Supervisor Wagner and Angel Force USA as a guest to a concert that took place at Irvine Park. And I've been, as you know, on the Senior Citizen Advisory Committee, and also when I was mayor with the Office on Aging, the County of Orange, Renee Ramirez, we kind of came up with the idea of doing a veterans pin for the city of Villa Park. We have a Villa Park pin for any resident, but we designed one specific for veterans of Villa Park. And so I've really kind of found my niche in that, working with seniors and with vets. And so this Angel Force USA raises awareness about veteran suicide. And some of the statistics on veteran suicide is it's the second leading cause of death in America, that 1 vet an hour dies by suicide. So that's between 22 and 45 vets a day, which is a pandemic, and it's got to change. It's suicidalence, because a lot of times these vets are silently hurting, like a lot of our suicide individuals who choose to end their lives. But for the vets, it's an extra level of when they come home and it's a different world from when they've been serving. And this is not just from our vets that are, from the wars of when we were children, but also of our peers and some of our friends' children that have these traumas associated with serving in the military and coming home. So fortunately for me, I don't know, I was asked to serve on the board for this Angel Force USA, and pending approval by the board of directors, I will hopefully get that appointment and be able to continue to focus on our seniors and vets in that way. But the concert was amazing. There was a Medal of Honor recipient that was there. There were two individuals that were World War II vets. One was 101, one was 99, both of whom stood for the flag, which just, like, I was bawling because it just was extremely moving to see them, even though that they were both compromised. They insisted that they stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. So that was fantastic. And I was honored to, of course, recognize and thank all the veterans that were there on November 11th, and also any veterans that had served and still do serve. So that was definitely a privilege. And looking forward to moving forward with this council. And again, thank you both for your time and commitment. And that's it.
Thank you. Sir?
First, I have to say thank you. Thank you to Bob. You were one of the instrumental individuals that got me involved in this many, many years ago. Maybe. Your wisdom, your guidance, your ideas, your nagging have been really a blessing for the city and for me personally, for my family. Our community is much better to have had you in it and on this dais. So thank you. Chad, likewise, we come from different backgrounds and different points of views, but there's always been a tremendous amount of respect. Your wisdom, your intellect, your passion for this community is palpable. I am a better person, and again, just like Bob, I think we are a better community to have had you in it and to have you up here on the dais. And I pray to God you continue to volunteer your time. I know with business opportunities and kids and family, it's very challenging, but I pray you stay involved, and I'm sure you will. We're a better community to have you in it, and I thank you, and I thank your family for the time they've afforded us, and likewise, Bob. Thank you. On the same note, I've had no less than 6 residents approach me within the past 3 weeks about coyotes. I personally have seen one outside of my residence at 7 o'clock in the morning sauntering up the hill. Thankfully, I have 2 very large dogs that made their presence known. But it is truly, it is increasing, and it's at an alarming rate. I've had residents come to me and say, hey, can we call them? And I said, no, I don't believe that's what animal control would do. I don't believe that's what Fish and Game would do. And I'm not sure that that's the appropriate answer. There have been discussions about trapping and relocating. What I want to say to everybody is please keep the reports coming. Please let city staff know and the county know. And I would hope that we exhaust everything because it's not just a threat to animals. I think it's going to be a threat to small children in the future. And our community is changing, and we need to be aggressive with respect to that. That's it. I hope everybody has a very happy Thanksgiving, and God bless everybody.
So, last meeting, huh? Well, let me start off by saying I got to attend Halloween Fest again this year and loved it. I see Jordan and Nicole in the audience and just want to say thank you. Forrest, the whole Community Services Foundation, the volunteer kids that came up and made all the games run so smoothly and everything. It was such a great event, really well done. And obviously, I love what our community does, but our Community Services Foundation, I saw Robert Frackleton pop his head in earlier, and we have had Crystal talk about Community Service Foundation. I know Robbie used to be on that, and all of the things that our Community Service Foundation does for this community are amazing. You're right. That's obviously my passion, and I will continue to participate and be involved in that stuff. So as the last council meeting as mayor, I guess there will be the transition one too, but congratulations, Villa Park. You survived a liberal left-wing mayor. No, it's a nonpartisan group, and I think that we've alluded to the different points of view. And, obviously I have a very conservative financial slant towards my progressive views, but I do want to say that being part of this council is about respecting and appreciating the different points of view, the different perspectives, the ideas that bring us to just what's about this small city. In a small microcosm of the whole world, this city has this duty to do things for its residents, and this council has people that are interested in it, dedicated to it, and really knowledgeable. I alluded to in the invocation the idea of not just showing up, although showing up is certainly a large part of it, but really being passionate or thinking deeply about what the issues are that might impact, staying aware and having a group of constituents that we're trying to be mindful of. When Bob talks for a period of time about all of the things that are coming, he doesn't have a set of notes in front of him. There's not like some big thing that he's reading through and like, that's all. That is Bob's dedication to this city for 8 years, where he has kept track of all of these things that are happening in our city. And Bob and I don't see eye to eye on things and have the same perspective, but we can sit on a council and share our perspectives and come together and very often vote the same way because we know that's what's best for Villa Park. And the knowledge, the ideas that we bring, sometimes really good ones, sometimes some bad ones, they come from different directions and then we filter through them. And that's how government works for you. And I know, great that we have a group of high schoolers in who are here to, as part of a government class, to think about what really is this about. But this is, I think, a pretty good example of how it can work. You can have different perspectives, you can bring them together, and you can come up with something that's helpful for a city. That, to me, has been what this last 4 years has been about. And I can't say anything without saying how great our city staff is. And I know you mentioned finding another Steve Franks, not possible. Steve, you've done such a fantastic job as a mentor, as somebody who's guided me through stuff, and with your experience and then your attitude, it's amazing. It's not like, oh, well, you don't know anything about that. You are so open to helping us to get through these things and to helping our community to be better. And I can't say enough good about you. Alyssa, Kim, the rest of our staff is just, Jim, all of and now Lee, we are really fortunate. We're really lucky to have such an amazing staff. And for me personally, it's just been a tremendous honor to serve, to be part of this group and to get the knowledge. I know I've had private conversations with each of you about stuff and has helped me to form my opinions better and to come up with ways that would make things hopefully to the benefit of our residents. And I think that we've done a pretty good job at that. Congratulations to all of you. And thank you so much for all of your insight and the time that you've put forward onto this. And with that, I will adjourn. Well, I'm sorry, hang on. Before I do that, I didn't say it. I got to thank my family. I almost missed that one. When I got elected, I thanked my parents because they've always been a source of inspiration and guidance for me. Your parents are really important in everybody's life, but for me particularly, I love my parents and I think they're amazing. My wife and kids have been just a foundation for me. They have made me laugh and cry, and they are incredibly supportive, and I couldn't do anything without them. They're amazing. So I love you to all of my family. And with that, I will adjourn until the next regular city council meeting on December 13th, 2022 at 6:30 PM. Thank you for participating. Have a safe and good evening.